Welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're going to look at the difference between movements along the demand curve and shifts of the demand curve. In order to do that, we need to examine what are the factors of demand first and foremost. So the factors of demand include price, and we have non-price factors. Our non-price factors include income, the price of other goods and services, consumer tastes and preferences, and advertising. So you're going to examine all of these factors and see how they affect the movement of the demand curve. So now we're going to look at our non-price factors which also affect the demand curve. So our first non-price factor we're looking at would be income. And based on the diagram, I'm sure you could realize that non-price factors cause shifts of the demand curve. So let's look at income. Let's assume at a price of P0, Q0, our income increases. For some reason, we got a bonus, an increase in salary, an increase in allowance. It means we now have more spending power. And because we have more spending power, more purchasing power, we will demand more goods and services even though the price remains constant at P0. Notice the price didn't change, yet we are demanding more. So our entire demand curve shifts to the right. And so at the same price of P0, we are now demanding Q1 units. And this is called an increase in demand. If, for example, we had a fall in our income, let's say we lost our job, we got a lower allowance, we would find that we would have less money to spend. So even though the price of the goods or service did not increase, we are still demanding less. That would cause the demand curve to shift from D0 to D2, a leftward shift in the demand curve, also known as a decrease in demand. So notice price remains constant, yet we are having movements of the demand curve, either a leftward shift indicating a decrease in demand or a rightward shift indicating an increase in demand. Notice I did not say a decrease in quantity demanded or an increase in quantity demanded. Shifts only cause an increase or decrease in demand, and that is caused by the non-price factors. Price is the only factor that causes movements along. So on to our next non-price factor, we'll be looking at the price of other goods and services. First one we can look at is substitutes. So a substitute is goods that could be used in place of each other. So popular one would be, for example, looking at Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 if you're gamers. So if you have to choose between the Xbox X Series X and the PS5, put in the comments which one you would choose. So let's assume you're looking at purchasing the Xbox Series X, and you would find that for Christmas, let's just say the PS5, the price fell. Because the price of the PS5 fell, it means then that the Xbox Series X would be relatively more expensive and you would demand less. So you'd find that the demand curve for the Xbox would shift to the left and fall. Versus, let's say for some reason, PS5, the price of the PS5 were to increase. It means that the Xbox is now relatively cheaper and people would switch to buying the Xbox Series X, and you'd find that the demand curve for the Xbox would increase. It would shift to the right even though the price of the Xbox itself did not change. So notice the price of other goods, the price of substitutes can affect the demand curve for a particular good or service. The other relationship we have in terms of goods would be what we would call complementary goods. So an example of a complementary good would be your Xbox, and let's say the Xbox the games or the Xbox Live. right? So let's assume we're looking at Xbox Live. If it is that there is a fall in the price of the Xbox Series X, the actual console, you'd find then that people will be motivated to buy the Xbox Lives or the Xbox games. So even though the price of the games or the Xbox Live didn't fall, you'd find that there's an increase in demand for it, and the demand curve would shift to the right. If, for example, the Xbox Series X, the console, were to increase in price, you'd find now that the demand curve for the games or for the Xbox Live would fall. So notice the price of the Live or the games itself didn't change, but the price of the complementary good, which is the Xbox Series X, the console, the price of that good changed, and it affected the demand curve for the Xbox Live. The other non-price factor we are looking at would be consumer taste and preferences, and this just has to do with your personal taste and preference. So for example, you might discover, let's say, that hamburgers may not be good for your health, and you would just decide, well, even though I like the taste of it, I'm not really into that anymore. I'm trying to watch more fitness, and you would decide, I'm going to consume less. And so the demand curve would shift to the left. Let's assume now that some study comes out and say hamburgers are really great for your health. You'd find then that your taste and your preference might change and say, well, I want to consume more hamburgers. And so the demand curve will shift to the right. It has nothing to do with the price of hamburgers falling or the price of hamburgers increasing. It just has to do with your own taste, your own preference. This even includes cultural preferences and traditions as well. Those things impact our taste. Last but not least, advertising as a non-price factor can cause shifts in the demand curve. Many times we'll be watching television and the ad comes up for Burger King or KFC, and all of a sudden we just feel like we must have it. We go out and we purchase the item. Prior to watching the ad, we weren't really feeling for the item, but as soon as we saw the ad, we went out and we got it. And that's the power of effective advertising. So it did something to us. It caused us to want to go out and buy these items. The reverse is true. So if there's bad publicity about these goods and services, you'd find that people will retract and they wouldn't want to consume it anymore, and the demand for goods and services would fall, right? And we'll see a shift in the demand curve to the left. So what I want you all to remember from this video is that the non-price factors, they are the ones that cause shifts of the demand curve. A shift to the right is called an increase in demand. A shift to the left, a decrease in demand. Price is the only factor which causes movements along the curve. All other factors causes shifts. I am Miss Lushu and I make economics videos. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, share and subscribe, and remember to hit the notification bell.